Hello, my name is Katherine Goertz, and I'm the Registrar of the Art Collection of HMML, the Hill Museum and Manuscript Library in Collegeville, Minnesota. I'm filming this installment of my HMML at Home series from my dining room in St. Paul, Minnesota, where I'm currently working from home. This is the third part of my HMML at Home series, How to Read a Print, Where's It Been? What I'm going to talk about is a way a print can communicate where it has been and who owned it, its provenance. This is one of my favorite parts of researching prints because it's fun to imagine the journey an object has taken on its way to you. It gives an object life. As long as prints have been in art form, there have been print collectors who don't just buy a few prints to hang on the wall, but who have hundreds or thousands, sometimes many thousands of prints. Historically, collectors have stored prints in albums. While there are surviving collectors' albums from throughout print history, here's one from the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, many of the prints in museums and in modern private collections were long ago separated from their old collections. Collectors sell their works to buy new ones, people die, and their heirs sell off their collections. Even museums sometimes sell works in order to buy new works of art or to refocus their collections. But even if a print is long separated from the collection in which it once lived, we can often identify that long ago home by the evidence a collector left behind. These are some of the collector's marks represented in the HMML collection. Serious print collectors would often have their own marks to identify the prints that were part of their collection that they owned. Sometimes centuries after the death of the owner, the collector's mark remains. Since I'm about currently 80 miles from the HMML collection, I can't take pictures of marks as they appear on our prints, so I borrowed this image from Christie's auction house showing the verso of a print. This is the mark of August Artaria, and next to it is that of Herman Weber. Since prints so often outlive their owners as prints moved from one collection to another, they can accrue collector's marks, building up a provenance that can be read just by looking at the verso of a print. Now I'm going to quickly look at a few of the prints in the HMML collection with especially interesting marks. This is a woodcut by the German artist Leonhard Beck. It depicts Saint Verona pouring water over the hands of a leper. It comes from a series Beck did for Emperor Maximilian I on the saintly members of his family. The print dates from around 1516, but the mark on the reverse, which looks like this, dates from the late 19th century and shows that the woodcut was in the collection of an anthropologist in Krakow, Professor Lothar Ritter von Dargen. By the way, again, since I'm at home, can't photograph the actual mark on our actual print. This is an image from the main resource for identifying collectors' marks, a catalog compiled by Fritz Lucht in the 1920s. There are two collectors' marks on this print by Abraham Basti from 1642. It shows a scene in a sculptor's studio where the sculptor is showing a group of people a little maquette, kind of a rough draft or proof of concept, for the full-size sculpture which appears here. The collector's marks are those of David Kreutzmayer, an early 19th century Swedish translator, and Stockholm's National Museum. Like I said, museums sometimes sell or deaccession their works. Based on this mark, this print was probably in their collection in the early 20th century. Of course, the National Museum is still in Stockholm. This is a common type of print from the 17th century, an engraved copy of a painting by a famous artist, in this case, the Deposition of Christ by the Italian painter Federico Barocci, copied as an engraving by Francesco Villamena. The collector's mark is that of an 18th century artist, quite a famous English artist actually, Sir Joshua Reynolds. Artists collected prints for aesthetic reasons like anyone else, but also to build a reference collection in a world where even books were nowhere near as available as they are now, and where you certainly couldn't do a Google search. Prints could be very handy for artists as a ready source of reference images for things like anatomy, costume, or common artistic themes like the Deposition. Another interesting collector's mark appears on this drawing, previously attributed to the Dutch artist Jacob de Geyn. It probably isn't a de Geyn. There are some technical issues that suggest that it wasn't drawn by an artist at that level, but likely the previous owner believed it was authentic. The owner represented by this collector's mark, Wad, is Prince Vladimir Argutinsky-Dolgorukov, a member of the Argutinsky-Dolgorukov Russian and Georgian noble family. So that's why there's a crown. His mark dates from around the turn of the 20th century, certainly an interesting period for a Russian Georgian noble with the Bolshevik Revolution and the associated upheavals. As with the Boss etching, when a print moved from one collection to another over the years, collector's marks were simply added. So collector's marks can sometimes communicate a long history of the life a print led before it made its way to your collection. The HMML collection has this print, Portrait of Jane Seymour, by the Bohemian artist Wenceslas Hollar, who worked mostly in Antwerp and London. This print was made in Antwerp in 1648. Maybe it was in Antwerp for the next few decades. Maybe it was bought by a collector from another European city. We don't know where it was until 1682, when it was in Paris, in the collection of the engraver and print publisher Pierre Mariette. Again, this is how the signature appears in looped. It looks pretty much the same on our print, except the date reads 1682 instead of 1674. Mariette, by the way, is an artist well represented in HMML's collection of architectural engravings. So it's nice to have that kind of connection between objects in our collection. The next collector's mark is that of the William Salt Library in Stafford, about 150 miles from London. After that, the next collector's mark shows us that after the library, this print went to English collector John Charrington, who was known for his expansive and extensive collection of portrait prints. A pencil note on the print near the mark shows where he got it, at a Sotheby's auction in 1923. You can't always trust what is written on a print. The drawing I showed you a little bit ago has a note on it attributing it to Jakob de Gein, and we don't trust that. But you can look up auction catalogs, even from 1923. And on March 5th, 1923, there was a sale of works from the William Salt Library in London at Sotheby's auction house. HMML has other works from the Charrington collection on similar themes. It's entirely possible they also came from that same sale. Charrington donated much of his collection to Cambridge's Fitzwilliam Museum in the 1920s. If this print had been part of that donation, we'd expect to see the Fitzwilliam Museum mark as well. Since we don't, we can make an educated guess that this print left the collection of Charrington after his death, meaning it was probably sold at a Christie's London auction of his remaining collection in 1939. After that, at some point, it came to the collection of Francis Marsick, who donated it to HMML. Thank you for listening to me today. You can see some of our collections online at vhimmel.org, including our art collection at vhimmel.org/museum. For more information on the Hill Museum and Manuscript Library in general, please visit our website at himmel.org. Thank you.